We already have some discussion earlier related to dose amount for the IVRT study using infinite dose or pseudo infinite dose, and technically how one dose should be used depending on which apparatus we are using. And some apparatus we may have some limitation in terms of the dose amount that can be applied. There is no like a minimum value really recommended for the dose amount, but you need to make sure you're sufficiently cover the membrane, and you need to justify it if you're using the values that are on the lower side. And I would like to ask what those justifications should be. If somebody proposes a dose of 100 milligram per centimeter square, if they have a linear release rate and validated IVRT, is that acceptable, or are you recommending they choose a higher dose amounts?
Tanas, they need to have a complete exposure. I mean, is the dosage form fully exposed to the receiving medium? Because most of the current manufacturers of the equipment, I think you need to have at least a minimum of 300 to 400 milligrams of the dosage form to have complete coverage of the area of exposure. So 100 milligrams seems low to me.
Yes.
But if they have some custom designed apparatus and they have complete coverage, nothing wrong with it.
Okay, thank you. We can also discuss about dosing procedure. I mean, we observed very nice videos in Christina's presentation showing two different types of apparatus and two different dosing techniques. I just wanted to get clarification from the panel about dosing the membrane inside versus outside of the apparatus. We have seen some applicants dosing outside on the scale, and their justification was that they make sure they want to have accurate dose amount applied. Can any of you comment on that? Is there an acceptable dosing procedure?
I would say, sorry, but I would say that first the membrane needs to be wetted appropriately before it can be dosed, but also just the action of moving it from the balance onto the cell. I would be really worried that the formulation would seep under, whether they're using a Teflon wafer or something like that. How can they guarantee that the formulation is going to stay where it's supposed to and not kind of start going around the membrane and then, once it's placed onto the cell, into the receptor solution?
Right. That's a good point. And I think also the dose amount is approximate. It is not used in any calculation. So really, if you can determine a nominal dose amount for your experiment by once you have your method developed, you can develop what's nominally should be used, and with your dosage form you know how much is going to weigh what. I mean, most of the time they know, so that's sufficient for. And anyway, we are looking at pseudo infinite dose, so then you are not using using up all the dose that you have, all the amount that you've dosed. So whether you use all of it or none of it doesn't really matter in your diffusion rate equation. So I think, and in addition to Christina's comment, I think that dosing the membrane while it's mounted on the donor chamber is ideal.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree completely. I really think under all conditions, you really want to prefer having the entire system equilibrated and then dosing it, rather than having a lot of kind of moving pieces under unequilibrated conditions. I understand that certain diffusion cells, the apparatus just has to be done that way, but unless that's your limitation in life, I think it's very hard to justify doing it other than first equilibrating the system and then dosing it.
There's one exception to that, Sam. Then when you have film forming dosage forms, for example, there are some we use these film forming lacquers, nail pan lac, and others similar efinaconazole solutions. These solutions, when the dosage form is applied and it forms a film, and you have to develop IVRT method of the API released from the film. So then you can't really form a film on a wet membrane. So you really do have to make a film outside and then mount it on your membrane. But that's just an exception because, other than that, the other, membrane should be mounted before dosage form is applied.
Okay.
And I just want to make one comment, as Sam mentioned that there are certain apparatus, which meant to be dosed outside, but if you are using a different apparatus, you cannot just cross-reference the different apparatus, which is designed to be dosed outside. For example, type A, it is okay because there, as Christina mentioned, you can control the dose, but when you are taking something like, a type B apparatus, and when you try to dose outside and, measuring in the weighing balance, and it lead to many concerns related to the well adequately controlled study. So when we see something like that, there are multiple back and forth review cycle, but I would like to take this opportunity and just communicate that I think it would be nice to follow